The biggest misconception about dribbling is that it's about beating your opponent or using skills. Big Feds here with a new guide on how to dribble like a top 1% player, no matter the meta. Whenever people struggle with dribbling, I always hear the same thing. I can't seem to get past my opponent, or what skills do I need to learn? I rarely skill, and my first intention when dribbling isn't usually to beat my opponent. However, I do get past pretty often. Me getting past is a result of looking for the correct things, which is what makes me a good dribbler. Dribbling isn't about beating your opponent. It's more about moving your opponent to find space and exploit that without passing. That can be done in many different ways, and in this guide I'll be giving you some simple tips and techniques that I use that will put you in favorable positions to do it successfully. The techniques I use when dribbling will be at the end of the video, and the principles I play by are going to be at the beginning of the video. All of the examples in this guide are straight from my stream or my coaching sessions. You can find information on both in the description below. One of the most common advice you hear is stop sprinting. And it's true, it's good advice. But the reason for its importance is because the length of the touch you take matters. It decides the picture by affecting how you control the tempo and space. Firstly, you've got close control dribbling. Your player takes touches that are very close to his body and keeps the ball close at all times. It's used in crowded areas and to get control of tight situations. It's also good for slowing down tempo and changing the pace you're playing with. Another useful area for it is to kind of challenge or tease your opponent, telling him, come get me. Whenever you do that, you need to be aware about what outs you have in this situation, otherwise you risk getting countered fairly easily. Secondly, you have normal left stick dribbling. The length of the touch is pretty normal, and it's used in most situations. Whether it's to keep the ball, recycle, or move away, it is without a doubt the most used dribbling technique in the game. Most dribbling techniques require a specific situation. When the criteria for the other ones aren't set, you use left stick dribbling. Thirdly, we have controlled sprint. The touches are still small and close to your body, but they are done at a faster pace than all-out sprinting. It's incredibly good in 1v1 situations to apply pressure against your opponent, but to keep the momentum and tempo, the small dribbles or changes of direction you make has to be in the field of view your player already is running in. If you make a huge change, you will lose the tempo and you're better off using other techniques. I mainly use this when I'm running at my opponent in a 1v1 situation, force him to move up to me, or when I'm in a counter attack and I number my opponent, as you can see in the clip currently playing in the background. And lastly, we have sprint. Only use this when there is space. People lose the ball so often because they can't stop pressing it. It should be looked at as a limited resource where you only use it at specific moments. A very important thing to keep in mind is that the context of the situation you are in decides what dribbling technique you use. You sprint because there's space, not because you want to. You use control dribbling because the situation allows it, not because you like it. Forcing things in situation just because you like it when the situation doesn't allow it is how you lose the ball. As I mentioned, dribbling isn't about beating as many defenders as possible. It's about having a clear purpose with every touch you make. That means knowing why you're dribbling, knowing where your exit is, and what your decision is after that. It sets you up to exploit space and get past your opponent without actively looking to do. Naturally, we scan first. We look where our teammates are, we look where the defenders are, and we look where the space is. We can see we have a numerical advantage up top, so we take a touch there so we can play on that side. After the touch, I realize that the pitch is very congested. Even though there are 4 players, it is very small and a pass here will be hard. Because we've taken a touch that gives us a bit of space, we take a touch towards that space to make our opponents believe that we will be running into that area, keeping in mind that we know that there was space on the other side. As soon as we see him commit, we take a touch backwards and take advantage of the space he has now vacated. By using the principles that will be in this video, it puts us in a position where we can score a goal. One of the biggest issues about dribbling is that people don't plan their next decision. A dribble is rarely the end goal. You need to ask yourself, when I get past my opponent or when I get to this area, what's next? Do I look for a cross? Do I look for a pass? Do I look to reset? A lot of people get stuck here because they'll dribble past their opponent, not know what to do, and allow their opponent to get back into position, which means that the dribble you just made had no value. Your first touch is extremely important. You don't want to spend the second touch fixing the first. You usually want to take the first touch into space, away from your opponent. This is to not allow the defender into the situation where he might win the ball. Common mistake people make is that they take a touch to where they want to be, not taking into consideration if that is possible. This is especially important when you're close to your opponent's goal. Always take the touch into space, away from your opponent, and wait for that specific opportunity to arise that will allow you to get through. If I forced a pass, if I forced a dribble towards a space where I want to be in this attack, I would not have been able to find what eventually led to a goal. Things you can keep in mind when taking your first touch is where is the best option to progress up the pitch. Can you somehow take the touch to keep momentum? Or if you have time and space, you potentially want to turn and play forward. If you're in tight pressure, you always want to protect and maybe bounce the ball off the player. If you're getting pressed from a specific side, you might want to run another way. Or if you have no other option, you just want to start over. All of this is extremely important for when the passes don't go where you want them to or they are awkward. If you're aware of these things, it makes it easier to adapt and make a decision quickly so that you won't get punished for something that the game allowed to happen. This is without a doubt the most important principle when it comes to dribbling. You want to pin the defender. When I mentioned that my goal usually isn't to beat my opponent, but I get past anyways, this is the main reason for it. Pinning the defender means hold their attention and their presence, which opens up space for a teammate to use that the defender usually protects. But by pinning the defender, he gets forced into making a decision he doesn't want to make. If he tries to cover for a pass, that usually means that I get through. If he doesn't cover for the pass, it allows for an easy pass to break through. By pinning the defender, I've forced him to make a decision on something he doesn't want to do, which allows me to take an option that opens up as a result. Another key aspect of fooling defenders or beating defenders when dribbling, even if it isn't the intention, is that you need to commit to all the options you have. It's the same way as in real football. Tricky players make you believe that they will use an option because they will use that option if you leave it open. They sell their intention with their entire movements. And it's the same thing here. You can't fake a pass, you can't fake a turn, you can't do something if you don't actually have the intention to follow through if that option opens up. I'm always aware of both my options, one of which does not include dribbling, which means that I'm committed to both my options, and it looks like I'm fooling my opponent, but in reality, I'm just picking whatever options are left. But being aware and committing to both of these decisions makes it so it looks like I'm beating him. Commit to all the options you have, and then choose the one that your opponent doesn't cover. If you don't believe in them yourself, if you're just using it as a fake out, your opponent is easily going to be able to read that. The other principle that describes my dribbling the best way is I don't invite the opponent into the situation. Basically, I just run away from him consistently. And again, this means that I'm not looking to beat my opponent, I'm just running away from him. But when he overcommits, it gives me space to run into. And me beating him is a consequence of that. I can't stress this enough. This is important because it always allows you more time moving away from the opponent. He's basically never going to get into the situation unless you mess up. As you can see currently playing in the background, every single touch and every single dribble is away from my opponent. No matter which side he's coming from, I'm always moving to the other one. What this does is it never allows my opponent to get a chance to win the ball because I'm always moving away from him. But at the same time, I'm still looking to threaten. I'm trying to find my strikers. I'm trying to get him behind. Eventually, with one of these decisions, we notice that we're able to get him to slow down and stop his defender, which tells us that we can now use the space in behind as a result of the decisions we've made. Which brings us to another aspect about dribbling, which is really strong this year. You always want to place yourself between the opponent and the ball, and shielding is a lot more effective this year than earlier years. By keeping yourself between your opponent and the ball, he's basically never going to be able to reach it unless he picks and commits to a side, which opens up the other side for you to use. With all of that said, sometimes you do want to challenge that defender. The key here is to be in control of the situation. A lot of times when people dribble against the defender, they do it because they're impatient and feel like they deserve to get through. You earn the right to challenge your opponent by being in control of the situation. And there are a few things you need to keep in mind. Firstly, is the defender isolated? If you were to beat one, does he have somebody to cover for him? Secondly, how much space is there for you to use if you beat him? What exactly is your end goal? And then more importantly, is your opponent a good defender? If you haven't been successful so far, what has changed to make you successful now? If you're not in control of the situation, you're basically gambling to see if you get past or not. And being in control means that the situation favors you. You're the one that decides whatever happens, not your opponent. He has to react to what you're doing. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this is an aspect that is very important. Pay attention to where the press is coming from. As your pass is traveling to your player and you want to start dribbling, use your opponent's momentum against him. As you can see in the example currently playing, I notice my opponent is coming from down below with pace. He's sprinting. It tells me that if I slow down, he will just run past me, which will open up space for me to use. And our opponent runs past exactly as we wanted to. Another extremely common mistake you see is people dribbling and shrinking the pitch for themselves. When you're dribbling, you want to stretch your team size. You don't want to make it smaller. So when you dribble, you need to ask yourself, where can I dribble? If you carry towards a teammate, the pitch gets super small because there's nobody offering width. When you carry away, you make the distance for your opponent a lot longer to run in between, and it gives you more time to make decisions whenever you get the ball rolling. As you can see in the example currently playing, I have a teammate down below, so I take the touch away from him to keep the pitch open. My opponent overcommits trying to cover for the pass, which allows me to run into the space that he's now opened up. If he hadn't moved up, that pass would have been open. Another aspect about knowing where to dribble is dribble where there is space. If your opponent isn't pushing up against you, there's absolutely no need for you to not take advantage of the space that he's opened up. He's given it to you for free and you can punish him. When it comes to which techniques I use, firstly, we have a very common one. When you're running next to your opponent and you're slightly ahead, you need to cut across and shield. You place yourself between the ball and your opponent, which doesn't allow him into the situation and makes sure that he doesn't catch up to you. If you're far ahead, you run across his trajectory so he won't be able to catch up to you. It will allow you to stay unchallenged. A favorite of mine is the change of pace. You go from one kind of tempo to another kind of tempo. The way I use it changes a lot. Anything that switches up the pace. If I'm sprinting or I'm using controlled sprint, my change of pace becomes slower to get my opponent to run past and open up space for me. As you can see in the example where I go from sprinting to normal left stick dribbling back into sprinting, which makes me able to get past my opponent each time. Another favorite of mine is the fake turn. You can do it in two different ways. The first one is without any inputs. When the ball reaches your player, you push the stick in the same direction the ball is moving, and then you flick it back to where it was coming from and do a small circular motion to turn your player around. Your player will then fake a turn upwards and turn the other side, which usually your opponent will fall for. Other way to do it is you press L1 and R1 at the same time and move the stick in the same direction the ball was coming from. Your player will then fake a turn automatically before moving back to where the joystick's actually aiming. Another one that I like is the feint turn and cancel. And you can do this with any player. Flicking the right stick twice in the opposite direction you're moving will make your player feint a movement forwards and then turn. But this is very obvious, so most people won't be caught out by it. What you can do is cancel it after the initial step to make people believe that you will turn, but in reality you won't. Another favorite of mine is the fake pass. You angle your body towards the teammate, make your opponent think you're gonna pass him. What happens is your opponent will angle his run to cut off that lane instead of focusing where there is space and allow you to easily get through. We do keep in mind that if he actually cuts off the space, we will pass it to the open player, which is similar to the next one, where we use the obvious to find space to dribble. We can see that our teammate is making a run in the situation, and we know that our opponent's going to cover for it because it is extremely dangerous. So we take a touch to the other side, using the run as the obvious, and dribble into the space our opponent has given us by not pushing up against us. And then we just wait till our teammate is ahead of our opponent because he has more momentum, and we find a pass when the situation allows it, which in turn leaves our opponent scrambling and we're able to score a goal. Other easy ways to create space to dribble is using the call to meet and call to run. Whenever you use call to run, for example, your player will make a run. It's easy to use that shadow as dribbling space until your opponent reacts to it. This one's a little bit harder, but one of the most effective ones I use. The diagonal touch. It works with both left stick dribbling and controlled sprint. When your opponent rushes towards you, you slightly angle your run away from the opponent while keeping the same direction you're running in, which makes so you put the ball away from your opponent while keeping the same momentum and allows you to use the space that is behind him. And what happens here is that if he doesn't commit, you can keep running away, but if you see him commit, it gives you time to turn in and take advantage of the space that he opens up. And lastly, we have the Powershot cancel. You power up a power shot to make your opponent believe you're going for one, and then you cancel it and take advantage of him believing you were actually going for one. As usual, it is really hard to learn all of this at the same time. I'd recommend thinking about how you play and which aspect it is you're struggling with the most. Say it is first touch, for example. Then you focus on that one specifically until it becomes instinct, and then you move on to the next one. But yeah, that was all I had for this guide. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know and I'll do my best to answer. I do stream my games on Twitch if you want to keep in touch outside of the videos. But until next time, I hope this is helpful and take care.